This is part one of a two-part deep dive into one of Gordon Lightfoot's songs. The second part of this episode will be released at a later date. I hope you enjoy the conversation between me and my guest. Thank you in advance for listening.
The first guest of the evening is truly a poet. He's an artist. He is a friend and an inspiration to anyone who has ever played the guitar or tried to write poetry. Would you please welcome Gordon Lightfoot?
This is Carefree Highway Revisited, the show that celebrates the work of Gordon Lightfoot song by song. I'm your host, Mike Messner, and with me today is a fellow Lightfoot fan from Mackinac City, Michigan, and a proud member of the Gordon Lightfoot Tribute, Mike Fornes. Mike, welcome to the show.
Hey, Mike, it's great to be here.
Lots of things to talk about here. How did you first get into Gordon Lightfoot's music?
Well, I liked a lot of music as a young guy growing up in the 70s and the 60s, and folk music was part of that scene. I liked rock and roll. I liked rock. I liked prog rock. I liked a lot of different types of music. The thing about Gord's music was that as a guitarist, it was easier for me to play than some of the other things I liked. And so I had a natural affinity towards that genre of music. And, you know, when you start to think about people like Dan Fogelberg and John Denver, Gordon Lightfoot was right in there. Those are things that are nice melodies to play. And I always admired his take on things. Living in the North Country, I always felt like Lightfoot's music was something that really appealed to me. It's about the woods and the water and the Great Lakes and lost love and broken hearts. So I always liked it.
What about concert experiences? Did you ever get to see Gordon in concert? What was that like for you? What was the location like, etc.?
Well, the first time I saw him was at an outdoor venue in Massachusetts, and that would have been probably in the mid-1970s. Enjoyed that show a lot. It was outdoors. It was lawn seating. You know, I was a long way from the stage. I think the crowd was a little rambunctious for the time, for the type of music that they were hearing. And I wanted to hear the music better. I remember that. But, you know, it was something that stayed with me, and I didn't see him again until probably the mid-1990s. And that was the first time that I actually got to meet him. And I was able to get backstage and was able to have a print of the Edmund Fitzgerald signed by him and got the chance to speak with him a little bit, and some other members of the band. And they were nice guys. He was nice. He was nice to me. And that's when I started to take more of an interest in the music. And this was at this point just playing around with it. I taught guitar for a number of years, and I found that students oftentimes would pick up on that, especially those that were adults, would like to be able to play a song by him. So it was a natural progression, I guess you could say.
So how did the tribute group happen?
Well, that was quite a story because it was on a dare.
Oh, no kidding.
We have an opera house nearby in Sheboygan, Michigan. Beautiful, ornate Victorian type opera house that's been restored. And they'd fallen on hard times because our governor at the time, way back then, had cut funding to the arts. And they were trying to make money. They were trying to stay open. They were trying to survive. Mm-hmm. They began a benefit concert series, $8 a ticket. And people that were local could come and play for free. And then the money would go to the opera house.
Okay.
They were drawing 30 and 40 people. It just wasn't going over very well. And in a conversation with the director, I mentioned that, you know, maybe if you had an act that did a little more than just have one person on stage singing in front of a curtain, or the band from the local bar getting up to play where people could see them for free, you know, why would they pay $8 to come in and watch them in this beautiful opera house when you're only getting 40, 50 people? And so the word was kind of put back to me, well, why don't you do something? Well, I would if I could, but I mean, I don't know what I would do. Well, why don't you have a guitar recital? Have your students come in and play. Well, you know, if you're going to do that, you're talking about their parents, their friends, their grandparents. You're going to get 50 or 60 people. It's going to be the same the thing. You need to have something more than that. Well, I think it was a couple of months after that a friend of mine said, "Hey, I see on the website of the Opera House that you're doing a show in January." I said, "What?" "Check it out."
Oh,
I checked it out, and there was my name with next to it, "To be announced," TBA.
oh,
So I
wow.
was on the schedule, all right. Now, what was I going to do? I called her up and I said, "Come on, you can't put me in this spot." "Well, why don't you do something? Why don't you do something?" "Well, you know what? What am I going to do? What's going to appeal to people in this north country of northern Michigan
Mhm.
that would get people to come out and maybe get more than the 50 or 60 people?" I put together a group of local musicians who were kind enough to rehearse with me and learn songs from scratch. There was no notation available for the lead guitar parts. You couldn't find much for the bass. The drummer that I got to help me with it remarked after about the second or third rehearsal, he said, "Why do you even need me in this? This is like bringing a tuba to a Who concert. There's no drums in this music." Well, there is, but it's very subtle. You have to figure out where we play and where you don't play. It was quite an undertaking. We rehearsed that for 4 months. And the night of the show came, I had been told that the pre-sale was already above 200 seats.
Oh,
So I
wow.
thought, well, this is really going to happen. We're really going to do this. It snowed like crazy. There was a snowstorm going on. I thought, this is really going to hurt us. There's not going to be any attendance. The people, half of them won't even show up. And they told me, "Well, the day of the show, you're up to 350.
Oh,
You've got 350 tickets sold."
wow.
And we were about to go on stage. We're maybe 5-10 minutes away from showtime. And the stage manager came back and said, "They want to talk to you in the box office." I got on the phone and the director of the Opera House said, "Mike, can you hold up for maybe 10 minutes? It's snowing like crazy. There's no parking available at this point. The parking lots are all full and the line is all the way down the street and people are standing in the snow."
Oh, my goodness.
Are you kidding me? Well, you know what? We sold the place out. We had over 500 seats sold, and it was such a fun time. They wanted us to do it again. So we played a second show and did the same thing, sold that one out too. And at this point, the guys in the band that we'd put together said, "This was fun. We spent a lot of time on this. We really ought to take this on the road, and we could put together a show where we could get paid for this and play out. What do you think?" Well, that's going to take some organization. So I formed a company called Sundown Productions, and I started to assemble equipment. You know the old saying, the leader of the band is the guy that owns the PA system. That's what they
Yeah.
always say. I owned quite a bit more than that. I started investing in lighting systems, in backdrops, trying to get the accurate amplifiers, the accurate instruments to play, and the thing really took off. And the next thing you know, we were out there playing, and we'd played in a few shows. And Gordon Lightfoot was going to come to Saginaw, Michigan to play in the Temple Theater. And I bought tickets for everybody in the band. And we went to the Temple Theater and filed in there. And I had sent communication to Lightfoot's office in Toronto, telling him that we were going to be there. And before the show started, I had a pamphlet, a brochure that we had produced about our act. And I got that to an usher who told me he would do his best to get it backstage. Well, at the intermission, I walked up to the sound booth and watched the guy that was working sound and asked him a question about the bass. I said, "How do you get the bass to sound so good? We have a tribute band that we're doing of Lightfoot's music, and it's a problem getting that bass to settle down in a lot of the places we play." And he was a very nice guy. He said, "Well, get the amplifier up off the floor. That's the big thing. Get some space between the amp and the floor, and that will help you." He said, "So you're the tribute guy?" I said, "Yeah." I passed a brochure backstage. I'm hoping I'll get a chance to meet these guys. He said, "Oh, they know you're here."
Oh,
I said,
wow.
They do?" He said, "Yeah, they were talking about you during the sound check this afternoon. They know you're here." I thought,
My goodness.
well, isn't that something? Well, the end of the show came and the ushers came along to do their job. And all you folks that don't have backstage passes, let's go. The exit's right over here out in the lobby. You have to leave the building now. Well, there we go. And we're about to go. And it's nighttime and the show's over and the lights are going out. And we were getting flushed out of there. And all of a sudden, a guy came walking up and said, "Are you Mike?" And I said, "Yes, I am." And he said, "Mr. Lightfoot would like to speak with you." Wow. Wow. You bet. I said, "I've got the band members here with me too." "Oh, no, not them. Just you.
Just you.
Just you." I said, "Well, come on. These guys want to meet their guys. Our guitar player wants to meet their guitar player. Our drummer wants to meet their drummer. We've got all these people here. We're not just here to bother Gordon. We want to talk to the guys in the band." "Well, all right. Come on." Well, we all got back there, and there they were. And Gord was busy with some sponsors, talking to some people that had sponsored the show. And we spent probably 15, 20 minutes talking with the guys in the band. And that was a fun time. Here's our keyboard player meeting Mike Heffernan and talking to him about keyboard setups, and Rick Haynes, their bass players, talking to our bass player, and on it goes. And all of a sudden, here came Gordon and walked over, and he looked us over and said, "So you must be Rick. You're standing next to Rick. And you must be Barry, because you're standing next to Barry Keene. Are you me?" I said, "Yeah, Gord, I'm trying to be you." He said, "Well, you're looking great." I said, "Well, I'm trying to look like you, Gord." He said, "That's why you're looking great." It was so fun. We just hit it off. They were very nice men, and we had a fun time talking to them. And it just took off from there. And the contacts that we'd made that night, we didn't really ever bother them. We tried to stay out of their way. We didn't act like fans. We tried to talk to them like professionals. And they began to give us tips on how to make the sounds right. If you've got this instrument, if you've got this amplifier, if you're using this pedal board, make these adjustments, do this, do that. Give a sample of what you're playing will help you further. And on it went. And it got to the point where they were really fine tuning our sound and really helping us make it. I think they wanted us to do well. They wanted us to sound good. They didn't want us to be, out there embarrassing ourselves or them. And it kind of just had a life of its own. And we just had so much fun going to see them at various shows in different states and in Canada. We would pack up and go check them out and get backstage and have a great time talking to them.
You're listening to Carefree Highway Revisited. We'll be right back after a word from a podcast partner or two.
Is that song really a cover? What instrument are they playing there? What do those crazy lyrics mean? If you're the kind of person who thinks about stuff like that, you're in luck, because I've got just the podcast for you. How Good It Is chooses a single song each episode and takes a dive into the story behind the song and the artist who made it famous. I'm Claude Call. You can find me in your favorite podcast software, or just point your browser to howgooditis.com.
How good it is.
In 1942, when the world needed a hero to fight the forces of evil, a woman had the courage to step forward. Her name was Helen Meeker. Her adventures took her across the United States and behind the lines of both the European and Pacific fronts. President Franklin Roosevelt trusted her judgment. Adolf Hitler put a price on her head. And in the face of overwhelming odds, she battled through everything that was thrown at her, dodged death countless times, and challenged the most diabolical figures in history. The star of more than 20 novels, Helen Meeker proved her grit and determination time and time again. And now the Long Highway Players bring the book series to life on the airways. These exciting dramas will place you in the middle of the action, immerse you in riveting drama, plunge you into unimagined intrigue, and confound you with dark mysteries, while giving you the opportunity to live adventures in a time when the fate of the world hung in the balance. Enjoy the exploits of Helen Meeker and follow author Ace Collins's In the President's Service series on That's Not Canon Podcast Network.
So you really kind of develop a closeness with the Lightfoot band as you're developing the tribute.
Yeah. And, there's a lot of people who I'm sure know Gordon and know the guys in the band better than us. But we made the most of our time with them. Anytime we got a chance to speak with them, we did. And when it was over with, we left them alone. When it was time for them to leave, we said goodbye and thank you. We would take pictures of things before the shows. We would take pictures of the equipment. We'd look at how the set was fashioned. We'd look at the way the keyboards were set up. We'd look at how the drums were set up. We studied this from top to bottom and really paid a lot of attention to the way that the whole thing was done. That's the things that we incorporated into our act. And I think we made it look the same. We tried very hard to make it sound the same. At one point, I remember showing Gordon some pictures of us and a picture that I had taken of their set, and then a picture of us the same way. And Gordon looked at it and he said, "My goodness," he said, "you've got the same instrument. You're wearing the same clothing that I wear. This could be us on stage." And I said,
Wow.
well, Gordon, now all we need is the talent. He had a good sense of humor. He would laugh at things like that. And he encouraged us. When he would hear recordings of things that we had sent to him, he encouraged us. He never expressed anything but admiration for the job that we were doing. And the guys in the band were the same. They would tell us, change this, change that. You got to fix this. Try doing this that way. And that'll help you. And, it did. It helped us produce a really good product. And that's what got us so many bookings in theaters. And, we've played now in 9 states and 2 Canadian provinces. That doesn't happen by accident. That's hard work. But those guys were a big part of it. They were a big part of helping us along the way.
Now, do the members of the tribute, have they become fans of Lightfoot's music in the process of being part of the tribute? I mean, I can't imagine they wouldn't, but you had said that you were sort of the catalyst for the whole thing. So are they now devotees of the music independent of being part of the tribute?
Everyone was. Every single person that has been in the band has answered that question, yes. Sadly, we've lost some of the original members. Some have passed away. We've had some that have health issues that kept them from performing, professional promotions in work, moving to different areas of the country. Some of these things got in the way, and I was always having to fill another spot, it seems like, every couple of years. Some people played with me for 15 years and did a really good job and really got into the music. And then there's other positions that we would try to get somebody on board and have them play, and then something would come up and they would have to leave, and they really weren't with us very long. Hired guns have kind of become the norm at this stage after this many years, where you're looking for somebody who's just such a good musician that they can sit down and just take it on and play it. In a tribute, it's got to be note perfect. You've got to sound just like the record. That's what people are expecting. You're not going to put your own take on it. You're not going to do a variation of the song. It's got to sound just like they did. And so it's a challenge, but a really good musician can pick up on that. We think we can deliver a pretty good product that's going to sound like Lightfoot and his group.
Now, Gordon was a master musician and easily Canada's greatest songwriter. Is there a lyric for one of his songs that really hits you personally every time you sing it? I can't imagine that it's something you're just going through the motions. I mean, if you're going to do a tribute, you've got to have this guy's song in your heart. So is there a particular lyric or a particular song that really gets you emotional every time you're singing it in performance?
Without question. You bet there is. I have played for 15 straight years at Whitefish Point at the Great Lakes Shipwreck Museum's annual bell tolling ceremony on November 10th.
Oh.
And to play that song this year, I also played at Mariners Church in Detroit.
Oh.
And when you've got family members that survived these men who died on that ship, and there they are right in front of you, and you're singing All That Remains Are the Faces and the Names of the Wives and the Sons and the Daughters. You come to that point in the song, too, where does anyone know where the love of God goes when the waves turn the minutes to hours? I mean, that's incredible writing. That's what gets you in the Songwriters Hall of Fame, that kind of work. Those are very meaningful lyrics. They always get to me. You bet they do.
Now, the group, clearly they're doing Lightfoot stuff, but not having seen a whole lot of tribute groups, I'm not really sure. Do you kind of go out and do the songs that Gordon would predictably do in an average show? Or do you sometimes throw in, okay, well, here's a B-side, or here's a deep track, or here's a song that wasn't released as a single? Or is it pretty much, here's Gord's Gold live? What's the repertoire?
Well, we do it the way Gord did it. We got the top 10. He always had the same top 10, all the radio hits. You knew they were going to be in every show. And then from there, that's where you sprinkle in some of the album cuts. That's where you pick out something that you start with that's unusual. That's what he did. That's the way he did it. We always would play 2 50-minute sets with a 15-minute intermission, exactly like Gordon did. And every time we would see him, we would take notes. Everybody was taking notes. When you go into a building in Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario, and you see Gordon and the band live in concert, and they come out and the very first song they play is Sweet Guinevere. Gee, never thought about playing that. That had a kind of a neat sound to it. Let's work on it. Well, we opened with Sweet Guinevere for quite a while because we liked the way that captured the audience. And it's that way with other things too. The wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald always comes early in the second set. If You Could Read My Mind always comes near the end of the second set. We always would finish with Canadian Railroad Trilogy as the last song that we would play. You pattern after success. It's a tribute to Gordon and to his band that we do it the way we do it because they were so successful. And so we emulate that success, and imitation is the sincerest form of flattery, isn't it? And that's what the guys always told us, that, hey, we just think it's cool that you've got yourselves patterned after all of us. It's not just you playing Gordon, but it's all these other people that are playing the roles of the people in the band. That's what I think really opened the door for us to getting all this fine tuning and this technical advice and the wherefore as to how to make it sound this way. So we would listen and we would update them and say, hey, that worked really well.
Now that brings us to another question, because it's certainly one thing to play the same instruments. And as you said, it has to be note perfect. Lightfoot's voice had a very distinct tone. And of course, he had a Canadian accent. And he was an amazing singer. And I've never heard anybody quite like him. So I guess what I'm wondering is, how do you capture his style without mimicking him? Can imagine that would be kind of a challenge.
Well, I can get up on stage and sing Early Morning Rain and sing about having a dollar in my hand, and that's going to sound like him, People come up to me after a show and they say, amazing, you sound just like him. I don't think I do. I don't have the same tone. I'm a baritone. He was too. But at the same time, I don't have that same vocal tone that he did. I can try to emulate that. But I try to avoid first person. The very first thing I say after the very first song to the audience, the first thing I tell them is, good evening, I am not Gordon Lightfoot. And it always gets a laugh. But then I explain what we're doing. What is our mission here? We're here to tell some stories. We're here to bring you a little closer to this man and to his music. And, telling a little background about a song, I think, lends a different aspect to the show. Everybody, I think, liked it when Gordon would speak, when he would talk. He didn't say much. He didn't talk a lot during concerts. And when he did, everybody hung on every word. And that's something that I can do. I'm comfortable speaking about these things, and I can talk about the song and kind of set it up. I think the audiences relate to that. And then you play the song. It goes a long way. So do I try to sound like Gordon? I don't think I'm going to come that close. But if an audience person tells me that, if I close my eyes, I thought it was him, and then I opened my eyes and I thought you guys were them, well, that's a real compliment. But I don't get all hung up on that. I don't believe it for a minute. I'm convinced that I'm going to sound like myself. I'm not going to sound like him, but I can come pretty close.
And I think no one will ever truly be able to sound exactly like him, except if he had a twin brother. And as far as we know, he doesn't. That wraps up the first part of this episode of Carefree Highway Revisited. The second part of this discussion will be released very soon. I hope you enjoyed this conversation so far, and that you listen to the second part when it comes out. See you next time.